Okay, welcome and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Jane Irrigation Training Series. I'm your host, Richard Restuccia, and first of all, I want to wish everybody a happy Earth Day. This Earth Day celebration is getting bigger and bigger every year. We're just doing a part of what 1 billion people around the planet are celebrating. I was looking at the hashtag Invest in Our Planet today, and I couldn't believe all the contributions that were happening. It makes me feel really good to see this because I can certainly say from my experience, it definitely seems bigger this year than any other year. There's a lot of momentum there, and that's exciting. So part of our Earth Day celebration was to talk about, and really the theme of Earth Day this year is how to invest in our planet or invest in our planet. And we're water management experts, and I wanted to bring on somebody who I think is one of the best water management experts, Gregg Black, to talk about today how we would invest in water management, which is one way to invest in the planet. Now, you got to remember that Gregg's been involved with ET Water Controllers since the start. Gregg, I think you were the number 3, 4 employee. Yes. Dating back almost 20 years now, right? So, yeah. So if we want to talk to somebody who's really had the experience of seeing what's been happening, investing in water management, you'd be the guy. So thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you being on here. And there are many different ways that we can invest in water management. And I know you've seen a ton over the years, but the first thing, Gregg, I just wanted to ask you or talk about is 20 plus years in water management, and you've seen things change, right? You've seen slowdowns, accelerations, What do you think? Where are we with this right now? Do we have big adoption? Do we have, are we gaining momentum? Are we losing? What's happening?
So I'm going to use a visual aid, Richard, right? So we're about this, right? In our adoption of the technologies and services that support water management. I think that what's been happening is people have been using the equipment, the services, the software, having a good result, right? And then more people. So we are on the right trajectory. We really are. And it's growing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great to hear, right? Because, sometimes I think, right, I had Jeff Toole on last week and we were talking about technology for agriculture. And we know, I think that somewhere below, less than 5% of growers are using any type of technology, but it's getting better every year, right? And I think a few years ago we thought maybe less than 10% of the commercial properties were using smart controllers. I think that's growing to maybe 15% or so. But are you seeing any acceleration?
We are. We're seeing it in a lot of the sites managed by the bigger landscape maintenance contractors and corporations. Those folks who have to manage on a scale level, right? They got, 25 HOAs or a certain number of corporate campuses. They need to see value from each one. The only way you can really do that is to invest in a technology platform that allows you to really manage that.
Yeah. So, Gregg, a lot of people, surprisingly, right? Maybe, I don't know. They don't understand necessarily that water is the amount of water in the world is fixed. We can only use so much, and we've got a lot of competing people for water right now, right? We've got we need our population's increasing, so we need to feed more people. We've got a climate change issue right now. And, the thing that's happening as well is we've got more people moving out of a poverty stage into middle class, which means more and better food. And all this is putting pressure on water, right? And how do we get to a spot in 2050 where we can feed a planet of 9 billion people? So, what are ways that people can invest in water management? And I don't mean in the stock market, but I mean, how do we really invest in the planet? How do we make sure we're saving?
So when, just stepping back, when we're talking about water management, right? How to apply water effectively and efficiently on the site according to the plant material, right? And then how to track that. So you've got supply side, right? Your timer, your controller, your nozzles, and demand side, which is the plant material, right? So there's these kind of things that are involved with water management. So how can we invest? The first thing we ought to do is get a little training, right? So we got to understand what's out there in the world. What are the technology solutions? What are the services that are available? So if somebody could get certification or even some basic education about it, right? Things like learn how to create a water budget, right? How do you do that? If you have this site, it's a square foot, it's a 1 square acre of turf. How much water is it going to be? Is it going to need? Investigate best practices, et cetera. So with the training comes then some equipment, Richard. Smart controllers will be helpful, right? Flow sensors will be helpful. There's software out there now that would be helpful. So the investment in water management is with some training and also with some equipment.
Yeah, I think that's so important, right? Because I still think that there's a good majority of people, and this isn't a knock. It's just that people haven't spent the time to figure it out or get the training of how long should I water and how often should I water, right? This is a real typical question that I get, and it's not that hard to figure out once you get the right training. So I think training's right on. Yeah, I think that's really a good point.
The thing about that is, right, if people are used to a certain style of irrigation, right? I've had this HOA for 25 years and we've always done it this way. And it's always been kind of okay, right? It's going to be a confident and motivated contractor to come in and talk about a different way to do that, right? So there's some risk there. People are a little uncertain. What are you trying to do? You're selling me this new stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So then the other thing that I see, Greg, is, I've written a few blogs and I've talked a lot about, people will be green and sustainable if it saves them money. Right. I often joke and say, if my dad were alive today, I wouldn't call him cheap. I'd call him green and sustainable, because he was always looking for ways to reduce waste. And a lot of the times it was to reduce costs too. So this has been something that's been interesting to me, because for years I could do a ROI calculation for a company and say, yeah, if you buy these smart controllers, and if I ever said less than 24 months, and I don't mean to say if I ever said, I would do the research and figure it out. But if the ROI calculation came in at 24 months or less, almost 100% of the time, people would buy the smart controller. If it was longer than that, they wouldn't. And so then the ROI calculation started to become this holy grail of water management. So then I started to think, are we doing ourselves a service, right? Because really, people should be investing in the planet, in our planet, because it's the right thing to do, right? But it's painful to spend today for something that's going to save 20, 30, 40 years out there. I think that's tough for people to get a handle on. So they haven't been doing it. But I just read a study recently that says, especially our younger generation, 42% of the younger generation in the US is willing to spend more to be green and sustainable. And I'm starting to look at examples, right? I see these electric cars that are coming out, right? And there's no good ROI on a car, electric or gas, right? And they've got price tags, $100,000, but people are buying them. So it's a little encouraging. Now, I know there's better examples too, but I want to ask you, this ROI calculation versus save water because it's the right thing to do. What's your feeling out there? What are you seeing?
So this is kind of what I do, Richard. I sort of split the difference, right? So I'm talking to a customer, I say, this equipment creates this kind of value, right? This service creates this kind of value, right? So you start them on the path to understand what you're trying to do. Now it's true, right? People are going to be price sensitive, right? Most people are, I am, you are, most people are. But happily, Richard, people are also reasonable, right? Nobody wants to waste water, right? And we don't have to be in a position to kind of guilt somebody into reminding them or trying to motivate them to save water. So I don't think we have to do that. So what you have to do at the end of the day is paint a very clear picture of how the customer is going to benefit. It's like, hey, we put this flow sensor in the ground, we put this smart controller on the wall, we change the nozzles. This is going to be the result, right? And once you can kind of paint that picture for them, they're really going to understand, oh, wait a minute, this is my benefit. I can safely get away from the old way that I used to irrigate. and my landscape is going to be green, it's going to be healthy. Maybe I don't have to apply as many chemicals, so for them, it's really helpful if you kind of paint that picture.
Yeah, you know where else I see this, Greg, is, and it's kind of interesting, I think, is that the northeast part of the country, where you don't need irrigation year round. And in fact, they get quite a bit of moisture in the summer. You can probably go a lot of times without a smart controller. Yet we put a lot of smart controllers in the Northeast. And I started to ask some property managers about that. Why? And they said, look, we've got buildings that have been around for hundreds of years. We want to do the right thing for the building. We want to do the right thing for the property, so it's around for another 100 years. And they really take the pride in doing it right and maximizing what they can do for sustainability that they're willing to spend, because an ROI calculation in a place like the Northeast doesn't usually pencil out.
Nope, it doesn't. And, you're talking about smart controller installations. That's one of the fastest ways to get a site up to speed on kind of a water conservation or water management pathway. Put that thing on the wall. It creates irrigation schedules for you. But more to the point, for those people up in the Northeast, Richard, it's going to track, right? How much water was applied, what's exactly going on site. So the water manager really has an opportunity to dial down that water usage and start achieving some of those sustainability goals.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah. So, Greg, as we start thinking about water management and this tug of war that's going to happen between agriculture and urban water use and landscape,
yes,
what do you see the biggest issue, facing the landscaping industry today?
So clearly from a water management standpoint, there's two, right? The biggest issue, particularly in the Western states, how to water as effectively as possible in a drought condition, right? That's kind of the worst case scenario, but happening frequently. And then the other one is it's affecting more and more people. How to water effectively when your municipality or your water agency says, hey, look, now we've got watering restrictions. You can't water whenever you want to. You got to water on certain days of the week or certain times only. And if you have a standard timer on the wall or a site that's set up kind of in a, what I'll say, traditional way, you might be stuck as a contractor to figure out, hey, how do I address these issues? How do I address drought? How do I address watering restrictions?
Yeah. So, Greg, I want to ask you, do the water agencies, right? Because if I'm a water agency and I say you can water 2 times a month or 2 times a week now, I took most of the smart controller customers out of the game. Right? Because the smart controller isn't going to do what it is designed to do. It has parameters around it. Do some of the agencies recognize this and give passes for smart controllers?
So the magic word with a water agency is variance, right? So if they say, look, there's a watering restriction, you can't do this, you can't do that, many times they'll be responsive to somebody who says, look, I invested in this technology, right? That allows me to pick and create the most efficient watering schedule. And I'll take advantage of all the weather factors to make sure that we adjust those schedules automatically going forward. Many water agencies want you to do that anyway, right? And since you've already made the investment, they are willing to listen to those variance requests.
Yeah, which is great to hear, right? Because the water agencies have given rebates for this, and it's great they figured it out. Because the other thing I worry about is if I get a 2-day-a-week water setup or restriction, I think a lot of people say, well, if I normally put 20 minutes on, I'm going to put 2 hours on because it's got to last a lot longer. And I'm just pushing that water past the root zone and it's not being used anyway.
Exactly. And, a smart controller can help you manage on the days that it's time to water. It can help you manage that, right? Because it understands precisely how much water you need for the root zone. One quick thing about smart controllers, right? So you're trying to manage 2-day-a-week irrigation. You can do that remotely, right? You do it on your phone. You do it at your laptop at the office or on the couch at home, right? You don't have to go to all these different sites. So for the contractor, not only can water management deliver value in the amount of water being applied and saved, but all the time, right? Driving around your $100,000 electric Ford pickup, right? It's like, hey, I can stay at my office and do a lot of this work for my customers remotely.
Right, exactly. So, Greg, in your 20 plus years, you've seen a lot of contractors do things different ways. And I'm sure you've seen some contractors do water management or sell or promote water management, or more importantly, get their customers to invest in water management in some good ways. Can you share some of that with us today?
There's definitely a process, right? There's a pathway, how do you represent water management to your customers? The first thing, as I said before, got to get a little training, a little certification, so you know sort of the best practices for water management, right? Then you have to get familiar with the equipment, the software, plant materials, even the hardware, controllers, et cetera. Be hands-on with that. Then, Richard, you got to get on a site, right? So offer a free site survey, a free estimate, a free upgrade of a couple of zones, right? You got to get on site and start working with some of these tools to understand how they work. And then the key thing, got to track those successes, right? Once you have these test units running, how much water was saved? Did we use less chemicals or fewer chemicals? How are the plants? Is the customer happy? Track all that. And then the linchpin and the whole thing with your successes, you blast that out to your customers on social media, however you want to contribute that, right, to the world. But you got to say that you found some success using some of these water management tools.
Yeah, so I think everybody gets, right, that we have to manage water better. I don't think we have to overcome an objection there. And I think you're right in saying that prove it, right? Prove that you can actually do this.
Indeed.
And man, it's not that hard to come up with a few case studies, document the work you've been doing. And you're going to have that prove it availability to convince other customers to go your way.
Absolutely. And with events like Earth Day and others, the knowledge and the awareness starts to creep up, right, in the general population. And if you're somebody who's out there who's being, kind of aggressive about successes and value they've created, those two things come together. And suddenly there's an opportunity to talk to more people about the cool things you're doing to help us conserve water and be sustainable.
Yeah. Well, Greg, man, you have given so much good information in a very short period of time. Thank you for being generous and sharing that with all of us. I think it is very, very generous of you, because that's a lot of experience. I know you've got a lot more to tell. So I hope you'll come back in the coming months and share some more ideas with us.
Thank you so much, Richard. I'd love to come back. Thanks for inviting me today.
Yeah, well, definitely, we got to have you back. And again, thanks so much for sharing this. And thanks to our viewers today who have tuned in. I want to remind everybody that if you look at the Janes website, janesusa.com, you'll find all our trainings there. Plus, we are wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. So, Greg, thanks again. Happy Earth Day. Happy Earth Day to everybody. Enjoy your weekends. And we will see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.